him standing at my daughter's wedding reception, champagne glass trembling in my hand, watching her announce to everyone that I'm dead to her. The words hang in the air like poison gas, seeping into every corner of this beautiful ballroom, contaminating every flower arrangement, every white satin bow. My hands, weathered from 68 years of washing dishes and folding laundry for a family that couldn't care less, grip the crystal stem so hard, I've built my entire existence around being invisible, a shadow moving through rooms, picking up after others, my presence acknowledged only when needed. Every wrinkle etched into my face tells a story nobody bothered to read, a lifetime of sacrifice, catalogued in lines nobody wanted to trace with their fingers. My daughter didn't just drift away over time. She constructed her distance brick by brick, phone call by ignored phone call until the wall between us became so high. My name is Eleanor, though at this moment my own name feels foreign on my tongue, like it belongs to someone who still had dignity, still had a family. The ballroom spins slightly. Or maybe that's just my world tilting off its axis. Everything I thought was solid ground turning out to be quicksand pulling me under. But there's something else happening right now. Something I noticed through the haze of humiliation that's threatening to suffocate me. Where I stand right now. My stepdaughter Sarah is standing near the bride's table, and she's got this look on her face, this almost gleeful smugness that doesn't quite fit the situation here. She leans over to whisper something to her husband Marcos, and they both glance my way with expressions that make my stomach drop even further than it already has dropped. Before I continue my story, I'd like to know who's on the other side listening to me. Comment your name and where you're watching from, please. I'd love to know. And check if you're already subscribed to the channel. That helps me so much to keep bringing these real stories to you. Stories that need to be heard and shared. Write in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love knowing how far our stories are reaching, touching lives in places we never imagined possible. How did I end up here? Publicly humiliated at what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. Let me take you back 3 months to when this nightmare truly began. My daughter Rebecca called me out of nowhere. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years, and suddenly she wanted to have lunch, just the two of us, like the old times. I should have known something was wrong, should have questioned why this reconciliation came so suddenly, but I was desperate, absolutely starving for any crumb of affection. She told me she was getting married, and she wanted me there, wanted me to be part of her special day, and my heart soared like it hadn't soared in years. That's when I made my first mistake. I mentioned that I'd been thinking about updating my will, about making sure everything was organized and clear for the future ahead. Rebecca's eyes lit up in a way that should have warned me, a predatory gleam that I mistook for interest, for caring about my well-being and my plans for my future. She suggested I talk to her lawyer friend, someone she trusted completely, someone who could help me navigate all the complicated legal stuff without charging me an arm and a leg. The lawyer's name was David Chen, and he seemed professional enough, kind even, explaining everything in simple terms that made me feel less stupid about all the legal matters. That's the first pista I should have caught. Rebecca had never helped me with anything before, never offered assistance without me begging for it first, pleading desperately. But I was so grateful, so pathetically happy that my daughter was paying attention to me, that I signed whatever David put in front of me without reading it carefully enough. Looking back now, standing here in this ballroom with my world crumbling around me like a sandcastle in a hurricane, I can see how blind I was, how completely stupid. Now let me bring you back to this moment, to me standing here with the 300 wedding guests staring at me like I'm some kind of monster, some kind of villain. Rebecca is still talking, her voice carrying across the room with perfect clarity, telling everyone how I ruined her childhood, neglected her, made her life absolutely miserable? None of it is true, but the lies are so detailed, so convincing, that I can see people's expressions changing, their eyes filling with judgment and absolute disgust. My legs feel like they might give out any second, but I force myself to stay standing, to maintain whatever scraps of dignity I have left in this horrible moment right now. Sarah catches my eye again, and this time she smiles, actually smiles at me. And that's when I know for certain that something much bigger is happening here tonight for sure. The reception continues around me like they become invisible again, but this time it is not the comfortable invisibility of someone who's just background noise and scenery. This is the invisibility of being erased, of being written out of the story entirely, and every instinct I have is screaming that this is planned, completely orchestrated. I make myself leave the ballroom with my head held high. Though my vision is blurred with tears, I refuse to let fall until I'm safely locked in my car, outside, alone. The drive home feels endless. 45 minutes of darkness and highway lights and the sound of my own breathing harsh and ragged in the silent car interior tonight. When I finally stumble through my front door, I immediately start canceling things, calling the bank, calling my credit card companies, my hands shaking so badly now. I'm terrified suddenly, convinced that if Rebecca could humiliate me like that in public, she might do worse, might try to take things, steal from me, truly hurt me. That's when I remember that my late husband James kept an old laptop in his study, one I haven't touched since he died 5 years ago, just gathering dust there. I boot it up, not really sure what I'm looking for, just desperate for anything that might make sense of tonight, might explain why my daughter hates me so intensely. The password is easy. I know James kept everything simple, using our wedding anniversary for every account, every device, a romantic habit I'd always found quite endearing. At first, I don't see anything unusual, just old emails about work, about golf trips with his buddies, about ordinary, boring life stuff from years ago. Nothing concerning. But then I find a folder buried deep in his documents labeled Financial Records 2019, which seems odd because James died in 2020, early in the year, in cold January. Inside that folder are emails, dozens of them, between James and Sarah, my stepdaughter, and the subject lines alone make my blood run cold in my veins immediately here. Estate planning discussion, asset transfer options, inheritance strategy. Every single email is about my money, my assets, my property, dividing me up like I'm already dead and buried. The realization hits me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. My husband was planning with his daughter to cut my daughter out completely from everything. But that's not the worst part, not even close. As I scroll through the emails with trembling hands, I find something that makes me actually gasp out loud into the empty room. Sarai and David Chen, Rebecca's lawyer friend, the man I trusted with my estate planning, have been having an affair for 3 years, according to these explicit messages here. The emails are explicit in more ways than one, detailing not just their sexual relationship, but their plan to manipulate me, to get control of everything I own in life. They knew James was sick before I did. There are emails discussing his diagnosis, his prognosis, how long they'd have to wait before making their move on vulnerable me. My husband, the man I loved for 30 years, the man I nursed through his final illness, was conspiring with his daughter to steal from my daughter and from me completely. The betrayal is so massive, so complete, that I actually laugh. A horrible broken sound that echoes in the empty study, bouncing off walls that suddenly feel hostile here. But wait, there's more, because of course there is. I find another folder, This one labeled simply contracts. And inside are documents that make my heart stop beating entirely. There's a will, James's will, dated just 2 weeks before he died, leaving everything to Sarah, cutting me out entirely, but it's unsigned, never filed, never made legal. The emails show that James died before he could sign it, before he could finalize his plan to destroy me, and Sarah has been seething about that ever since he passed. She needed a new plan, a different approach, and that's where David Chen came in, worming his way into my life through Rebecca, through my desperate need for family connection. The documents I signed 3 months ago, the ones David Chen prepared, aren't what he told me they were. They are not simple estate planning documents at all. Not at all. I pull them out now from my filing cabinet, reading them properly for the first time, and the legal language finally makes horrible, perfect sense in this new context now. I've signed over power of attorney to Rebecca, given her control of my medical decisions, my financial decisions, essentially made myself legally helpless in my own life here. The room tilts dangerously, and I have to grip the edge of James's old desk to keep from sliding onto the floor, my knees buckling under the weight of this discovery. My own husband conspired to rob me. My stepdaughter continued his plan. My daughter was recruited to help. My trusted lawyer was Sarah's lover and accomplice in all of this mess. Tonight's public humiliation wasn't random cruelty. It was strategic, designed to isolate me, to make sure nobody would believe me if I tried to fight back later on. The weight of this discovery isn't like holding a beloved book in my hands. It's like having a boulder drop from my chest, crushing my ribs, completely stopping my breath. My carefully constructed world doesn't collapse dramatically like a building imploding in a cloud of dust. It tilts suddenly at first, that imperceptible tremor before the earthquake strikes. But I'm not the same woman who walked into that wedding reception tonight. Not anymore. Something fundamental has shifted deep in my bones, in my spine, stealing me forward. I spent the rest of that night reading every single email, every document, taking photographs with my phone, making copies, organizing everything methodically and very carefully. By the time dawn breaks through the study window, painting everything in pale gray light, I have a complete picture of their conspiracy against me, every single ugly detail. Sarah thought she was so clever, thought she covered her tracks, but she didn't know about her father's paranoid habit of backing up everything digitally on multiple drives. James documented everything, probably as insurance against Sarah turning on him someday. And now his paranoia is my weapon, my salvation, my path to justice and vindication. Over the next 2 weeks, I do what I should have done months ago. I hire my own lawyer, a woman named Patricia Morrison, with a reputation for being absolutely ruthless here. Patricia takes one look at the documents I signed with David Chen and immediately starts proceedings to have them invalidated on grounds of fraud and conflict of interest entirely. It turns out David Chen never disclosed his relationship with Sarah, never told me he had a personal stake in my estate planning, which is a massive ethical violation here. Patricia also files a complaint with the State Bar Association, and within days, David Chen's law license is suspended pending investigation into his conduct with me as client. I watched this unfold with a calm I didn't know I possessed, a cold satisfaction that feels nothing like the warm love I once felt for my family. But it's enough. Rebecca calls me once during this time, her voice dripping with fake concern, asking if I'm okay after the wedding, if I need anything, if I want to talk about it. I almost laugh at the audacity, at the sheer nerve of her pretending to care now, but instead I simply tell her I'm fine, everything is fine, I'm handling everything myself. I can hear the confusion in her voice, the uncertainty. She expected me to be broken, destroyed, crying and begging for another chance, for forgiveness, for her acceptance. Instead, I'm calm, measured, polite even, and I can tell it unnerves her, makes her wonder if maybe she went too far, pushed too hard, broke me completely beyond repair. Let her wonder, let her spend the next few weeks thinking she destroyed me so thoroughly that I'm just a shell now, an empty husk barely functioning in daily life. Meanwhile, Patricia and I are planning something much bigger, much more devastating than they could possibly imagine in their greed-soaked little brains and black hearts here. The family reunion is scheduled for 6 weeks after Rebecca's wedding, an annual tradition where everyone gathers at my house, the house James left me. Ironically enough, now. It's always been my job to host, to cook, to clean, to prepare everything while everyone else just shows up and enjoys themselves without lifting a finger to help. This year, I send out the invitations, like always, warm and welcoming, telling everyone how much I'm looking forward to seeing them, to being together as one big family. Sarah responds immediately, saying she'll be there, she wouldn't miss it, and I can practically feel her satisfaction through the email, her sense of victory finally completed here. Rebecca is slower to respond, probably still uncomfortable after the wedding, but eventually she confirms too, bringing her new husband Cameron, the man who stood silently by her. I spend those 6 weeks preparing, but not the way I usually do, not cooking and cleaning and decorating. Instead, I'm gathering more evidence, more proof, more ammunition for war. Patricia helps me hire a forensic accountant who goes through every single transaction Sarah has made in the last 5 years. Every suspicious movement of money anywhere at all. We discover that Sarah has been stealing from me for years, small amounts at first, then larger ones, using information David Chen gave her about my various bank accounts. There are forged checks, unauthorized withdrawals, credit cards opened in my name, a whole constellation of financial crimes I never noticed because I trusted her completely with everything. The accountant estimates Sarah has stolen over $200,000 from me since James died. Money I thought I was spending on my own life, on normal, everyday things. But Sarah was careful, clever, spacing out the theft so I wouldn't notice any single large amount missing, just a slow bleed of my resources over time, systematically draining me. David Chen provided her with access, forging my signature on documents, using his position as my attorney to facilitate theft, to rob me blind while I trusted him with everything. Patricia also discovers something else, something that makes the whole picture even darker. Cameron, Rebecca's new husband, is Sarah's second cousin, brought in specifically for this purpose. The whole thing was a setup from the start. Cameron was inserted into Rebecca's life deliberately, tasked with convincing her to participate in this plot against me completely. He promised Rebecca a share of the inheritance once they got control of everything, convinced her I was standing in the way of her happiness, her financial security in life. My daughter, my baby girl, who I raised and loved and sacrificed everything for, was recruited into a conspiracy against me by a man she thought she fell in love with naturally. The manipulation is so layered, so complex, that I actually feel a grudging respect for Sarah's plannings, even as I'm planning her complete and total destruction right back. Patricia tells me we have enough evidence to press criminal charges, to have all of them arrested, but I want something more, something bigger, something they'll never fully recover from. I want them exposed in front of everyone they know, everyone they've lied to, everyone they pretended to be good people in front of for years and years of deception. The day of the family reunion arrives, and I'm ready, calm, centered in a way I've never been before in my entire life, armored in righteousness and cold, burning fury. I've catered the event, hired professional staff to handle everything, told everyone it's a gift to myself, a way to actually enjoy the reunion instead of working through it. The house looks beautiful, elegant even, decorated with flowers and twinkling lights, the perfect setting for a celebration, or in this case, an execution of sorts, a reckoning. People start arriving around noon. Family members I haven't seen in years. Cousins and aunts and uncles, about 40 people total, all dressed nicely for the occasion at hand. Sarah arrives with Marcus, her husband, who's been blissfully ignorant of her schemes, and she kisses my cheek with fake warmth that makes my skin crawl with absolute revulsion. Rebecca and Cameron are next, and Rebecca looks nervous, her eyes darting around like she's expecting something bad, though she doesn't know what yet. What's coming for her? I play the perfect hostess, warm and welcoming, making sure everyone has drinks and food, circulating through the crowd, accepting compliments on how nice everything looks today here. Around 2 o'clock, once everyone has arrived and settled in, I stand up on the small stage I've had constructed in my living room, normally used for family talent performances. I tap my champagne glass with a fork, the crystal chime cutting through the conversation, bringing everyone's attention to me standing there under the lights, waiting for silence. My hands are steady, my voice is clear, and I begin speaking, thanking everyone for coming, for being part of this family tradition, for making time to be here today. Then I pause, take a breath, and say something nobody expected. I need to share something with all of you, something I discovered recently about our family situation here. The room goes quiet, curious, everyone's eyes on me, and I can see Sarah's face go pale, see her grip Marcus's hand so hard her knuckles turn white with pressure and fear. I explain calmly and clearly what I found on James's laptop, the emails, the conspiracy, the plan to rob me, to isolate me, to destroy my relationship with Rebecca forever. I describe the affair between Sarah and David Chen, the forged documents, the stolen money, the manipulation, every ugly detail laid bare for everyone to hear clearly, right now. I watch as shock ripples through the crowd like a wave, faces contorting in disbelief, in disgust, in horror at what they're hearing from my mouth right now in this moment. Sarah tries to interrupt, tries to claim I'm lying, I'm crazy, I'm making it all up, but I'm prepared for that, prepared for every possible objection or desperate defense. I have a projector set up, and I start showing the emails projected on my living room wall for everyone to read, James's words condemning him from beyond the grave. I show the financial records, the forged signatures, the unauthorized withdrawals, every piece of evidence clearly documented and impossible to deny or explain away now in this room. David Chen isn't here, of course, but I make sure everyone knows about his suspended law license, about the ethics investigation, about his complete professional destruction happening now. I turn to Rebecca, and my voice cracks for the first time, genuine emotion breaking through my careful composure, and I ask her simply, "Why, baby? Why did you do this?" She's crying, mascara running down her face in black rivers, and she stammers that Cameron told her I didn't really love her, that I'd always favored my stepchildren over her. Cameron, that manipulative parasite, convinced her that getting control of my assets was actually protecting her future, protecting their future together as a married couple in life. I show everyone the evidence of Cameron's family connection to Sarah, the proof that he was planted in Rebecca's life deliberately, that their entire romance was completely strategic. Rebecca turns to him with horror dawning in her eyes, finally seeing the truth, finally understanding that she's been used just as much as I have been used by all of them. The room erupts in chaos. people shouting, family members demanding explanations, Sarah trying desperately to leave but being blocked by her own relatives, her own horrified mother. Marcus, Sarah's husband, looks absolutely shattered, his face gray with shock, and he keeps asking her if it's true, over and over. Is it true? Is any of this actually true? She can't even look at him, can't form words, and her silence is confession enough. He walks out of my house, out of her life, and I watch her world crumble in real time. Patricia steps forward then, introducing herself as my attorney, and she calmly explains that criminal charges are being filed, that restitution will be sought through the courts immediately. She hands Sarah and Cameron packets of legal documents, serving them right there in front of everyone, the papers shaking in their trembling hands like leaves in a windstorm. The police arrive 10 minutes later, called by Patricia at precisely the right moment, and they escort Sarah and Cameron out of my house in handcuffs for everyone to witness clearly. Rebecca collapses on my couch, sobbing, apologizing over and over, but I can't comfort her right now. Can't touch her. The betrayal still too fresh and too raw in my heart. I tell her that I'm not pressing charges against her specifically, that I understand she was manipulated, but that she needs to leave my house, leave my life, for now at least. She begs me for forgiveness, for another chance, and maybe someday I'll be able to give that to her, but not today, not here, not after everything that has happened to me. The guests slowly leave, shocked and subdued, and I can hear them talking outside, can hear their voices carrying back through the windows, discussing what they witnessed today here. I know by tomorrow, everyone in our social circle will know the truth, will know what Sarah did, what Cameron did, what James planned to do before death mercifully stopped him. Their reputations are destroyed, completely and utterly, and more importantly, they'll face real legal consequences, real punishment, not just social embarrassment or temporary shame now. Over the following months, I watch as justice unfolds with the slow inevitability of a glacier carving through stone, unstoppable and absolute in its progress toward completion. Sarah is convicted of multiple counts of fraud and theft, sentenced to 5 years in prison, ordered to repay every cent she stole, plus damages, fines, interest, everything owed. David Chen is disbarred permanently, loses his law practice, faces his own criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy, his entire career destroyed completely and permanently, forever finished. Cameron is convicted as an accessory and co-conspirator, sentenced to 3 years, and Rebecca divorces him before the ink on his conviction is even fully dry on the papers. Marcus divorces Sarah, takes her for everything she has left, which isn't much after legal fees and restitution payments, leaving her destitute upon release from prison eventually. I reclaim everything that was stolen from me, rebuild my accounts, secure my assets properly, and most importantly, I rebuild my sense of self, my dignity, my self-worth completely. Rebecca and I are slowly, carefully rebuilding our relationship, one supervised coffee date at a time, one painful, honest conversation after another, healing incrementally together now. She is in therapy, working through the manipulation, the guilt, the realization that she almost destroyed me for people who never cared about her at all, really, ever. I am in therapy too, processing the betrayal, the loss of my husband's memory, the years I spent being invisible to people who should have seen me clearly all along. When I signed those papers with Patricia, surrounded not by the family that betrayed me, but by the lawyer who fought for me, I felt a peace I'd forgotten even existed. They lost not just the money they coveted so desperately, but something infinitely more valuable, The illusion that they could use me, discard me, and still be rewarded somehow. Justice, I discovered in that moment, doesn't need to shout to be heard. It can be quiet, methodical, inevitable, like water wearing away stone over centuries of patient work. The taste of vindication isn't sweet like I thought it would be. It's more complex than that, bittersweet, tinged with sadness for what was lost, what could have been. But beneath the sadness, there's something solid, something unshakable. The knowledge that I stood up for myself, that I fought back, that I refused to disappear quietly into nothing. I think about all the years I spent being small, being invisible, being convenient, and I wonder how many other people are living that same life right now today, at this moment. How many people are being slowly erased by their own families, stolen from, manipulated, gaslit into thinking they're crazy, that they're the problem, that they deserve nothing at all. Sometimes late at night, I still hear Sarah's voice in my head, smooth and false, calling me mom while planning my destruction. And I have to remind myself it's finally over. The nightmares come less frequently now. The dreams where I'm signing documents without reading them, where I'm trapped in that ballroom watching Rebecca denounce me, forever there. I've started volunteering at a senior center, helping other elderly people recognize the signs of financial abuse, of manipulation, of family members who exploit vulnerable elders. It's healing work, using my experience to protect others, to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to someone else who might not be as lucky, as prepared as I was. The house feels different now, lighter somehow, even though it's emptier without the family gatherings, without the pretense of closeness we all maintained for years and years. I've made new friends, real ones, people who see me, who value my company, who don't calculate my worth in terms of inheritance, assets, or property value and dollar signs. My days are mine now, truly mine, not spent in service of people who saw me as a resource to be exploited, a problem to be managed, an obstacle to overcome completely. I garden more, read more, travel a little, small trips within the state, rediscovering who Eleanor is when she's not defined by her relationships with other people anymore. Finally, there's a strength in me now that wasn't there before, forged in the fire of that betrayal, tempered by the process of fighting back, of refusing to accept my complete erasure. I won't pretend it doesn't hurt still, that there aren't days when I grieve the family I thought I had, the daughter I thought I knew, the husband I thought truly loved me. But the grief is cleaner now, honest, not mixed up with confusion and self-blame, not poisoned by the lies they fed me about my own worth, my own reality and existence. I keep the folder of evidence in a safe deposit box, not because I need it anymore legally, but as a reminder, a physical proof that I'm not crazy, it was all real. Sometimes I take it out and read through the emails again, and each time I am struck by how calculated it all was, how long they planned, how little I meant to them, really. But I'm also struck by my own survival, by the fact that I'm still here, still fighting, still building a life worth it living, despite everything they tried to take from me. That champagne glass from the wedding, the one that trembled in my hand during my public humiliation, is still in my cupboard, still intact, despite everything that happened then. I've thought about smashing it, about performing some symbolic gesture of moving on, but instead I keep it, a reminder of how far I've come, how much I've survived through. Every time I see it, I remember that moment of standing in that ballroom, feeling like I was drowning, feeling like my life was ending, feeling utterly destroyed and abandoned. And then I remember the moment I found those emails, the moment I decided to fight back, the moment I chose strength over surrender, justice over quiet disappearance. into nothing. The ballroom is just a memory now. That wedding is just a painful chapter in a story that didn't end the way they planned, the way they hoped, the way they desperately wanted. I'm 68 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm living for myself, making decisions for myself, valuing myself not based on others' opinions of my worth. The wrinkles on my face tell a new story now, not just of sacrifice and invisibility, but of survival, of resilience, of refusing to be erased without a fight back against them. My hands, still weathered from years of work, are steadier now, confident in their ability to hold what's mine, to protect what I've built, to push away what threatens me. I look in the mirror some mornings and barely recognize the woman staring back, not because I've changed physically, but because I see myself differently, now completely and totally. I see a warrior, a survivor, someone who faced the worst betrayal imaginable and came out the other side not broken but transformed, not destroyed but remade much stronger. The legal proceedings took almost a year to fully resolve, but Patricia guided me through every step with patience and fierce determination that never wavered even once throughout it all. There were depositions, court appearances, meetings with prosecutors, and through it all, I maintained my composure, telling my story over and over to judges, lawyers, investigators, anyone who needed to hear. I learned that speaking your truth, even when it's painful, even when it exposes your deepest humiliations, is a form of power that nobody can take away from you ever. The prosecutors told me that my case helped them understand how sophisticated elder financial abuse can be, how it often involves multiple conspirators working together over years of planning. My testimony led to changes in state law requiring attorneys to disclose any personal relationships they have with beneficiaries in estate planning, a small victory that might protect others. Sarah's sentencing hearing was particularly difficult. I had to decide whether to read a victim impact statement, whether to face her one more time in that courtroom filled with strangers. I chose to speak, and I looked directly at her as I described what her betrayal had cost me, not just financially, but emotionally, the loss of trust, the years of recovery ahead. She didn't look at me once during my statement, kept her eyes fixed on the table in front of her, but I saw her hand shaking, saw the reality of her actions finally sinking in. The judge was harsh in sentencing, noting that elder abuse cases represent a particular kind of cruelty, exploiting trust and vulnerability for personal gain without remorse or consideration. When they took Sarah away in handcuffs, I felt no joy, no satisfaction, just a deep exhaustion and a sense that a chapter was finally, definitively, closing forever in my life. Cameron's trial was shorter. His defense attorney tried to argue he was manipulated by Sarah, but the evidence of his knowing participation was too strong to overcome effectively at all. Rebecca attended his trial, sitting in the back row, and afterward she came to me and said she was sorry. Sorry for everything. Sorry for being so blind to what was happening. We started having weekly coffee dates after that, supervised by her therapist at first, then gradually on our own as trust began to rebuild between us, slowly but surely over time. She showed me text messages Cameron had sent her over the months, carefully crafted messages designed to turn her against me, to make her believe I was standing in her way. Reading those messages was like watching a master manipulator at work, each text building on the last, creating a false narrative that seemed so convincing when you were inside it. Rebecca explained how Cameron would bring up my supposed failures as a mother, would remind her of every time I disappointed her, magnifying normal parenting imperfections into monstrous neglect. He convinced her that I had plenty of money and was being selfish by not sharing it, that I was planning to leave everything to charity just to spite her, after death. None of it was true, but when someone you love tells you something repeatedly, especially when they claim to have your best interests at heart, it becomes your reality somehow. I realized then that Rebecca was as much a victim as I was, caught in a web of lies, spun by people much more experienced in deception than either of us could have imagined. Forgiving her wasn't instant, and it's still not complete, but it's happening gradually, one honest conversation at a time, one shared tear at a time, one step forward together slowly. She's working now, supporting herself for the first time in her adult life, and she tells me it's hard but also liberating, not depending on anyone else financially anymore. I'm proud of her for that, for choosing to stand on her own 2 feet rather than looking for another easy way out, another person to lean on financially or emotionally. We talk about James sometimes, about how we both missed the signs of his true nature, about how good people can have dark secrets that destroy families even after death. Rebecca said she used to think he was perfect, her stepfather who treated her like his own daughter, but now she sees the cracks in that facade, the manipulation he practiced too. I tell her that people are complex, that James probably did love us in his own way, but his love for Sarah and his fear of losing control overcame his better instincts. It doesn't excuse what he planned, what he almost did to us, but it makes it slightly more comprehensible, slightly less like a complete betrayal of everything I thought I knew. The other family members have been supportive, many of them reaching out to apologize for not seeing what was happening, for not questioning the narrative Sarah had been spreading. My sister-in-law, Martha, told me she'd always felt something was off about Sarah, but she dismissed her instincts, not wanting to cause family drama or seem like she was stirring up trouble. I told her that's exactly how these situations persist, how abusers continue their abuse because good people don't want to make waves, don't want to believe the worst about family members. We have to trust our instincts more, have to be willing to ask uncomfortable questions, have to protect the vulnerable, even when it means confronting people we love and care about. The senior center where I volunteer has become a second home to me. The people there have welcomed me with open arms, grateful for someone who understands their fears firsthand. I run a weekly workshop on financial safety, teaching seniors how to protect themselves from family members and others who might try to exploit them financially or emotionally over time. We cover topics like power of attorney, the importance of having your own attorney, recognizing red flags in family members' behavior, and documenting everything carefully and thoroughly always. Many of the attendees have their own stories of being taken advantage of, some by family, some by caregivers, some by supposed friends who saw their vulnerability as opportunity. One woman, Dorothy, told me her son had been stealing her Social Security checks for 3 years before she finally gathered the courage to report him to authorities and the police. Another man, Frank, had signed over his house to his daughter, only to have her evict him a month later, leaving him homeless at 73 years old without anywhere to go. These stories break my heart, but they also fuel my determination to make a difference, to use my experience to help others recognize and escape similar situations before it's too late. I've started speaking at community centers and churches, sharing my story publicly, and the response has been overwhelming, with many people thanking me for my bravery in coming forward. Some tell me privately that they suspect they're being manipulated or stolen from, but don't know what to do. Don't want to believe their own children could betray them so completely. I give them Patricia's card. I give them resources. I tell them they're not alone, that what they're feeling is valid, that they have the right to protect themselves no matter who. The hardest part of this whole journey hasn't been the legal battles or the financial recovery. it's been rebuilding my sense of trust in people, in family, in relationships. I find myself second-guessing everyone's motives now, wondering if kindness is genuine or if there's some hidden agenda lurking beneath the surface of every nice gesture offered. My therapist, Dr. Linda Pacheco, tells me this is normal, that trauma rewires our brains to be hypervigilant, to see threats everywhere, even where none actually exist at all. She is helping me learn to distinguish between healthy caution and paranoia, between protecting myself wisely and closing myself off completely from any possibility of human connection ever again. It's slow work, this healing, much slower than the destruction was, and some days I wonder if I'll ever feel truly safe again, truly able to relax and just to be myself. But then I have a good day, a day where I laugh with my new friends, where I enjoy my garden, where Rebecca and I share a genuine moment, and I think maybe I will. The money that was stolen has mostly been recovered through the restitution orders, though Sarah will be making payments for the rest of her life, small amounts that barely make a dent. Patricia helped me restructure all my accounts, create trusts, put protections in place so that nobody can ever access my assets without multiple levels of verification and approval processes. I've updated my will properly this time, with an attorney who has no connection to anyone in my family, who Patricia personally vetted and recommended from her own professional network. The bulk of my estate will go to charities focused on elder abuse prevention and support, with a smaller portion set aside for Rebecca if she continues on her current path of recovery. I made it clear to Rebecca that her inheritance is conditional on her maintaining her independence, her sobriety, her therapy, her honest relationship with me over time and years. She understood, didn't argue, actually thanked me for caring enough to set boundaries, to refuse to enable the kind of dependency that Cameron had cultivated in her for his own purposes. Setting those boundaries has been good for both of us. It's forced us to build a relationship based on something other than obligation or financial expectation, on genuine care. We're not where we used to be, and honestly, I don't think we ever will be again, but we're somewhere new, somewhere that feels more honest, even if it's also more fragile. The house still feels strange sometimes, too big for just me, too full of memories, both good and terrible. Ghosts of the past lurking in every corner and every room. I've considered selling it, moving somewhere smaller, somewhere without history, but something keeps me here. Some stubborn refusal to let them chase me out of my own home entirely. I've redecorated though, changed everything I could, replaced furniture, repainted walls, trying to make it feel like mine again rather than a museum of my failed marriage and broken family. The study where I found James's laptop is now a bright reading room with big windows and comfortable chairs, a place of light instead of darkness and devastating secrets. I ripped out the dark wood paneling and painted everything cream and pale blue, filled the shelves with books I actually want to read instead of James's dusty old business manuals. Every change I make feels like reclaiming something, taking back space that was stolen from me emotionally, even when I still technically owned it legally on paper and in documents. My garden has become my sanctuary, the place where I feel most at peace, most myself, most free from the weight of everything that happened to me over these terrible months. I grow vegetables now, something I never had time for when I was busy serving everyone else, and there's something deeply satisfying about eating food I grew with my own hands. The tomatoes taste better somehow, the lettuce crisper, knowing that every bite represents my independence, my ability to nurture and sustain myself without needing anyone else's approval or help. I've joined a local gardening club, and the people there know my story because it was in the news, But they don't treat me like a victim, just like another gardener. We talk about soil pH and pest control and the best varieties of roses for our climate. Normal conversations that feel like medicine after years of walking on eggshells around the family. One of the club members, a man named Henry, who's 72 and widowed, has started coming by to help me with the heavier garden work. The digging and hauling that's harder now. He's kind, patient, doesn't push for anything more than friendship. Seems content to just share space and stories about his late wife, Margaret, and his grandchildren who live far away. Sometimes I wonder if there could be something more there eventually, but I'm in no rush, no hurry to trust someone new with my heart when the old wounds are still healing slowly. Dr. Pacheco says that is healthy, that I should take all the time I need, that there's no timeline for when I should be ready to open myself up to potential hurt again. But she also encourages me not to close myself off completely, to remain open to the possibility of connection, of joy, of the good things that still exist in this world, despite everything. I am trying, genuinely trying, to find that balance between protection and isolation, between wisdom and cynicism, between caution and hope for what the future might still hold for me. The nightmares have decreased significantly, from almost every night to maybe once or twice a week now, and when they come, they're less vivid, less paralyzing than they used to be before. I've learned techniques for grounding myself when I wake up panicked, for reminding myself that I'm safe now, that the danger has passed, that I fought back and won this battle. Some nights I still cry, mourning not just what I lost, but what I never really had. The family I thought I belonged to that turned out to be an illusion all along. But those tears feel cleaner now, more like release than like drowning. And they're followed by a sense of peace rather than spiraling despair that used to consume me completely before. I've started writing down my story in more detail, thinking maybe it could become a book someday, something that might help other people recognize and escape similar situations in time. Patricia thinks it's a good idea, says that elder abuse is drastically underreported and misunderstood, that personal stories like mine can make the issue real for people in ways statistics cannot. Rebecca has offered to write a chapter from her perspective about how she was manipulated, how the grooming worked, what warning signs she missed that might help other adult children. I think that's brave of her, being willing to expose her own mistakes and vulnerabilities to potentially help strangers. And it's another sign that she's genuinely changing and growing up. The legal system failed me in some ways, was slow and frustrating, and often seemed more interested in procedure than justice. But it ultimately worked, ultimately held them accountable finally. I know not everyone is as lucky, that many elder abuse cases never see the inside of a courtroom, that many victims die before getting justice or never report out of fear. That's part of why I'm so committed to the advocacy work now, to making noise about this issue, to demanding better protections and stronger enforcement of existing laws everywhere. I've testified before the state legislature twice now, pushing for bills that would make it easier to prosecute financial exploitation of elders and impose harsher penalties on offenders. It's terrifying speaking in front of all those politicians and cameras, but it's also empowering, using my voice for something bigger than myself, bigger than my personal grudge or pain. One of the bills passed, creating a special task force to investigate elder abuse allegations more quickly and thoroughly, and knowing I played a part in that feels incredibly meaningful. Sarah's mother, James's ex-wife, Catherine, reached out to me about 6 months after the sentencing, asking if we could meet, saying she had things she needed to tell me. I was reluctant, afraid of what she might say, whether she'd defend Sarah or blame me somehow. But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet her for coffee. Catherine told me she'd suspected for years that something was wrong with Sarah, that her daughter had always been manipulative, had learned it from James during their marriage. Honestly, she said James was a master at playing people against each other, at making everyone compete for his affection and approval, at using money as a weapon of control always. Sarah had learned those same tactics, had watched her father operate for years and absorbed his methods, and Catherine had tried to warn me, but James had cut her off completely. Hearing this was both validating and devastating, confirming that the man it loved was someone I never really knew, that the mask he wore for me hid something much darker underneath. Catherine apologized for not trying harder to reach me, for not finding a way to warn me about Sarah's true nature. But she'd been afraid, intimidated by James's threats and manipulation. We've become unlikely friends, bonded by our shared experience of being deceived by the same man, of loving someone who was never quite who we thought they were at all. She visits sometimes, helps in the garden with Henry and me, and we talk about everything except James and Sarah, building something new rather than dwelling in the painful past. The media attention was overwhelming at first. Local news stations wanting interviews, true crime podcasts reaching out, online forums dissecting every detail of my case and life. Patricia handled most of it, giving statements on my behalf, protecting my privacy, while still allowing enough information out that other victims might recognize themselves in my story. I did agree to one long-form interview with a respected journalist who writes about elder issues, wanting to ensure my story was told accurately and with appropriate context provided. That article was picked up nationally, led to more speaking invitations than I could possibly accept. More people reaching out with their own stories of betrayal by family members. The attention was exhausting, but also strangely validating, proof that I wasn't alone, that this wasn't some unique personal failure, but a part of a much larger systemic problem affecting thousands. I've connected with other survivors through support groups Patricia helped me find, and hearing their stories, sharing mine, has been an essential part of my healing process over these months. There's something powerful about being in a room with people who truly understand, who don't need long explanations because they've lived through similar betrayals and survived somehow too. We trade tips on protecting ourselves, on dealing with the legal system, on managing the emotional aftermath, and we celebrate each other's victories, however small they might seem. One woman in the group, Alice, successfully fought off her daughter's attempt to have her declared incompetent so she could take control of Alice's finances and medical decisions entirely. Another, Robert, managed to get his power of attorney documents invalidated when he proved his son had forged his signature, had never actually gotten Robert's consent at all on anything. These victories feel huge, monumental, because we all know how easily things could have gone differently. How many people in our situations don't manage to fight back successfully at all? The group has become family in a way my actual family never was. People who show up because they choose to, because they care, not because they want something from me. We have potlucks, celebrate birthdays, check on each other when someone's having a hard day, build the kind of genuine caring community that I always thought family was supposed to be. Henry has started coming to the support group meetings with me, not as a survivor, but as someone who wants to understand, who wants to be a better friend and ally to us. His presence there, his willingness to listen and learn and not make it about himself, has deepened my trust in him, made me think maybe there are still good people in this world. We went to dinner last week, just the two of us, and it felt like a date, even though neither of us said that word, and I found myself enjoying his company, laughing, feeling light. I'm not ready for anything serious, may never be, but having someone kind in my life who asks for nothing except my company feels like a small miracle after everything I've been through. Dr. Pacheco says in making remarkable progress that the work I'm doing to help others is also helping me process my own trauma, giving me a sense of purpose and meaning beyond survival. She's right. On days when I'm tired, when the memories feel heavy, when I wonder if the work is worth it, I think about Dorothy and Frank and Alice and all the ideas. I think about the people I might help in the future, the families that might be saved from falling into the same traps, and that gives me strength to keep going forward. The foundation I'm starting, called Elders Rising, will provide free legal consultations for seniors who suspect they're being financially exploited by family members or others close to them. Patricia is on the board, as is Catherine, and several other attorneys have volunteered their time, creating a network of protection that didn't exist when I needed it most desperately. We're also developing educational materials for adult children, helping them understand the difference between helping aging parents and exploiting them, between care and control over their lives. So much of this happens because people don't realize they've crossed the line. They justify small transgressions until they're stealing thousands, telling themselves they deserve it somehow. Education won't stop people like Sarah, people who are knowingly predatory, but it might prevent good people from sliding into bad behavior without fully recognizing what they're doing wrong. The foundation launches next month, and I'm both excited and terrified, hoping we can make a real difference, worried about taking on such a big responsibility at my age. But then I remind myself that age is exactly why I'm qualified, that surviving what I survived gives me credibility and understanding that no amount of academic study could provide. I've been asked to speak at a national conference on elder abuse, to share my story with social workers, attorneys, and policymakers from across the country next summer. The thought of standing on that stage, of being so visible, still makes my stomach flutter with anxiety. But I've committed to doing it, to using my voice for good. Now, Rebecca is planning to come with me to provide support and also to share her perspective, and I think it will be good for both of us, facing this together finally. Our relationship is different now, built on honesty rather than illusion, and while it's not the easy closeness I once craved, it feels more real, more sustainable for the long term. She tells me things now, real things about her life and struggles, doesn't pretend everything is perfect, doesn't perform the role of happy daughter for my benefit or anyone else's. And I listen, really listen, without trying to fix everything, without making it about me, just being present with her in whatever she's experiencing in the moment we share together. It's a small thing, but it feels revolutionary after a lifetime of complicated dynamics and unspoken resentments and expectations neither of us could ever fully meet for each other. Some days I'm still angry, still bitter about the years that were stolen, the trust that was shattered, the naivety that was exploited by people who should have protected me. But more and more, I'm finding moments of genuine peace, of contentment with my life as it is now rather than mourning what it was or could have been under different circumstances. I'm learning to sit with discomfort, to accept that healing isn't linear, that I can feel grateful and angry simultaneously, that both emotions can be true and valid at the exact same time. The old Eleanor, the one who walked into that wedding reception expecting to celebrate her daughter's happiness, feels like someone I knew in another lifetime, so far removed from now. That Eleanor was smaller, quieter, more willing to accept crumbs of affection, more afraid of rocking the boat, more convinced that her needs were less important than everyone else's needs. This Eleanor, the one I'm becoming, is louder, fiercer, less apologetic about taking up space, less willing to tolerate disrespect or exploitation from anyone at all, family or not. I like her better, this new version of myself, even though the process of becoming her was excruciating, even though I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone else in the world. There's a freedom in having nothing left to lose, in having already survived your worst fears and discovering you're still standing, still breathing, still capable of building something meaningful. The wedding photo, the one that should have been a happy memory, sits in a drawer now, not displayed but not destroyed, just existing as evidence of what happened that night. Sometimes I take it out and look at it, at Rebecca's smile that I now know was fake, at Sarah's smug expression that I missed completely in the moment but see clearly now. I look at my own face in that photo, see the hope and joy and oblivious trust, and I feel both tender toward that woman and frustrated by her blindness to what was happening. But mostly I feel proud of her, of me, for surviving what came next, for finding strength she didn't know she had, for fighting back when it would have been easier to just disappear. The crystal champagne glass that trembled in my hand that night sits in my cupboard, and sometimes I use it for special occasions, a reminder that I can reclaim anything, even painful symbols. Last week, I drank orange juice from it in the morning sun while sitting in my garden, and it felt like a small victory, turning something that represented humiliation into something ordinary. These small acts of reclamation, of taking back pieces of my life and my space and my story, feel essential to my healing, to rebuilding a sense of ownership over my own existence. I'm 68 years old, and I'm finally learning what it means to live for myself rather than in service of others' expectations, needs, desires, or manipulative agendas at my expense. It's not too late, I tell myself and others. It's never too late to start over, to fight back, to reclaim your dignity and your life from people who try to take it from you. Do you think I went too far in destroying my stepdaughter's life so completely? Or was it justified given what she tried to do to me, given the years of planning and theft? If you discovered that the people who raised you, who you trusted completely with your life, were secretly conspiring to rob you blind, could you forgive them, or would the revenge be inevitable? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved deeply, by someone you thought you knew? And if so, how did you handle it? How did you move forward with your life after? Thank you for listening to me until the end. This is my story, and every word here is true. These are stories of real people who went through extreme situations and found strength. If this story touched you in any way, please subscribe to the channel. I post real stories of overcoming, revenge, and justice every week here. Stories that need to be told. And tell me in the comments, have you lived through something similar? What would you have done in my place? I love reading your stories too. Your experiences matter to me deeply. Click on the videos that appear on the screen now for more emotional stories that will make you think, that will make you reflect on family, on loyalty, on true justice in life. Until the next story, take care of yourselves, protect yourselves, and never let anyone convince you that you're worth less than you are, no matter who they are to you.